Hi everyone, welcome. We're going to be making another recipe together today, and we're digging back into our pantry just to find some things that maybe we need to get used up. And this week we're focusing on whole grains. Whole grains are a very important piece of our diets because not only do grains that are complete have the nutrition that we need, but also a lot of fiber. So a good example of a whole grain, oatmeal. So if you want to make oatmeal for breakfast, that's a wonderful way to add a serving of whole grains to your day. Or if you want to make some granola, that's what we're going to do today. You can make granola and store it in a container for the week and sprinkle it pretty much on everything that you like. Yogurt, cereal, oatmeal. You can add oats on top of your oats. So today we're going to make pretty much the most simple granola recipe that's around. But I am going to kind of add some additional things into this recipe that I found in my pantry and that need to be used up anyway. But you can make the most basic, and I'm going to tell you what that is. So most granola recipes have a sweet component. Either it's sugar or honey or maple syrup. Our recipe today calls for honey, and I'm going to put the link for the recipe below this video. So what I did was I put a little bit of cooking spray into my measuring cup because it helps the honey to release easier when I try to pour it. And I'm going to pour, we have 4 tablespoons of honey, or that equals about a 1/4 cup of honey. I'm going to pour that right into my measuring cup. You might think it's strange that my honey is in a pan. It is a little strange. But the reason why is because when I went to get my honey out of my pantry, I'm sure this has happened to some of you, it was pretty much a solid mass. I couldn't measure it, I couldn't pour it. But it's still good to eat, it's still delicious. You just have to try to get it then out of that container. So what I did was I kind of just ran it under the container under hot water for a while until the honey got softer and I was able to spoon it into this pan. And then on really low heat, I just kind of brought it back to this pourable state. All right, so I have a 1/4 cup of honey in this bowl. And I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. I'm using olive oil today. You can use canola oil, vegetable oil. And the biggest benefit of making your own granola, other than obviously getting some servings of whole grain in, is that granola that you purchase at the store tends to be pretty expensive. So you can make this base recipe for a lot less than if you went out and bought a big bag of granola, especially if you have a very large family and they eat, cereals and granolas really quickly. All right, so we have our honey in here, we have our oil in here. I'm going to add, the recipe calls for a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and I'm just going to do a sprinkle of that. I love cinnamon, so I feel like it's hard to add too much. And then I wanted to add a little bit of ginger because I found that in my pantry. And you can add a sprinkle of nutmeg or a sprinkle of cloves if you wanted to, just to make it a little different. So I'm just going to mix this up. And that's really the base. This is what makes our granola crunchy. This is what makes our granola sweet. And then you can add whatever you have on hand to this base. We're going to do 2 cups of oats. And these are rolled oats, but I have also made this recipe with quick cooking oats if that's all you have on hand. And these are our add-ins. So the recipe only calls for about 4 tablespoons of added nuts or seeds. So I'm just going to try and get pretty close to that without going too much over, because when you think about that amount of base that we had, all of that needs to kind of coat everything that we're adding to this bowl so that you get that nice crunchy texture. So I just added some sunflower seeds. They are salted sunflower seeds. Unsalted sunflower seeds would be good. I'm just gonna add some almonds. A couple extra there. If you don't have any nuts or seeds, this granola is just as delicious without that additional ingredient. And I found some coconut that I forgot that I had. I happen to like coconuts, so I'm just gonna add a sprinkle. If you don't like it, just leave it out. All right. The only thing I'm adding that this recipe does not call for is a sprinkle of salt, because I feel like that does a very slight sprinkle. It does kind of enhance those flavors, brings out the sweetness of the honey, and the flavors of the nuts and seeds. We don't want to add too much though, because obviously the goal of our homemade granola is to have less salt and sugar than a packaged granola, which is actually pretty easy to accomplish because a lot of store-bought granolas have a lot of added sugar. So what you really want to do is make sure you mix this super well, because if by mixing it, you're going to coat all of those pieces like I said before. So make sure you really get in there, take a second to mix. If your children want to help out, this is a great task for them. And all I'm going to do is I preheated my oven to 350. All I'm going to do is spray. Our baking sheet is nicely coated, and I'm going to pour out our granola onto the sheet. And you only really have to bake it for about 15 minutes or so. Sometimes I let it go a little longer. You just want to make sure it doesn't get too dark, too toasty, because you know all that sugar and the honey could make it burn if you leave it in too long. But just keep checking it, and with a spatula turn it over a couple times, and it should be done between 10 and 15 minutes. Welcome back everyone. We roasted or toasted our granola for about 15 to 20 minutes, and it's all nice and toasty brown, and it got very crunchy. That's why I love this recipe. I've tried, I don't know, several hundred granola recipes in my day, but I feel like with the amount of oil and the amount of honey that's in this recipe, you really do get a great crunch for not a lot of fat and not a lot of sugar. And as you can see, when I go through it with the spatula, it's nice and clumpy. It has those nice crunchy clumps in it, like that. And that's really what you want for granola. All right, so to finish it off, we have a half a cup of dried cranberries. We have some raisins that'd be really good in here. This has a nice sweetness right at the end. And you don't want to add these before you bake it because of the high sugar content in the dried fruit. They would burn if you bake that in the oven that long. All right, so that's it. That's our pantry granola. So I'm just going to store this in an airtight container. I like to put a little measuring cup on top of the container so that my family knows to use that to get their granola out instead of sticking their hands right in it. They don't always do it, but I try. So I hope you enjoy, and we'll see you next time when we dive into another pantry staple and figure out together how we can use it.